Yo, this is Abdullah,
And this is Yusuf
and welcome to the Bro.
to Bro Podcast.
Yeah, boy.
Okay, this is our very first podcast, and today's main topic is going to be about rivalry. So, Yusuf, what do you think rivalry stems from?
Well, from what I researched, is experts say siblings rivalry comes from children competing against each other for their parents' love. It's basically for recognition or attention, and I think rivalries really start heating up when the sibling is close to their age, or the eldest sees there's another child in the family, so they try to compete against each other. So what do you think it stems from, personally?
Personally, I believe I kind of agree with this concept about competing for your parents' love. I feel like in some degree that could be the case. But there are other cases, as in, personally, it could just be jealousy or meaning of just to one-up each other, just to show who's really the leader and who's the leader of the sibling, who's the older of the sibling. But what do you think, Yusuf?
I think personally, because I think me and you had a rivalry. So growing up, I felt like I wanted to be better than you. I wanted to show people oh, I'm actually better. When we used to play games against each other, you were more nearly everything we did, you were better because you were older, so you had more knowledge and everything. For me, because I was the younger sibling, I felt like I needed to show I'm actually good at this too. I'm actually better than you in all this. So is it the same for you, or what's your...
Honestly, I believe it's just the competitive nature of it. Me and you are probably, I understand, both of us are very competitive people. You were you joined a bunch of soccer teams, right?
Yeah.
In this university and previous schools, you were in a lot of teams. So I understand your competitiveness and my competitiveness either. This is why I believe also this competitive nature that siblings have, they release it with the closest person dear to them, which is their brother, or their sibling.
Yeah.
That's who's they're with most of the time, most of their lives. They're with each other, and I believe that's where competitive spirit exists from. It's from the rivalry against each other to try to one up each other and be, the better person. But that is what we believe where it stems from, and also rivalries sort of create a rift between between siblings, as in you are sort of forced to choose the opposing team or the opposing side as your sibling for your competitive nature, as this rivalry stems from. Where, for example, me and you, we have opposing teams we support in football, or we have different hobbies than each other.
I think we have different opinions on anything, because it also kind of stems to individualism. So I'm also being my own person, and we kind of stop copying each other, where as in oh, you play this game, I have to play this game so I can beat you, or if you do this, I have to do this, just to have the rivalry. So I feel like it also kind of stems to individualism.
I agree with you, as in each child is competing to define who they are as an individual. That is a good concept. But also I believe that it's true, as in probably as a child, when you were siblings as kids, you would often copy one another, but as you grow older and this rivalry, grows even more apart, you tend to go your own path and try to be yourself rather than trying to one up each other. You most likely give up on that and try to pretty much be yourself as you grow apart, as often the case as when you grow older, your brother goes away in college and you're stuck in school in between, the age gap and one another, and you try to just be your own self, as you don't have really anyone else to compete with.
Yeah, I mean, when you said about college and everything, I feel like it becomes less of a rivalry and more of a learning phase, because when you go into becoming an individual, the person you were competing against, you're learning from.
I agree with what you're saying. This pivots us to our next topic, where rivalry grows and it becomes copying / sharing and learning from one another. this Dr. Varady said, almost all younger siblings have the innate desire to mimic their older sibling, especially early in life, where they want to look like them and act like them and mostly want their approval. I don't know about approval personally, but I do agree, as in like the younger sibling usually mimics and copies the sibling that's older than him to a form when they were younger. But as they grow older, they kind of find their own path and their own way as an individual. Do you agree?
I think the siblings that are like close to their ages, so let's say like 2, 3, 4 years close to each other, I don't know about them wanting to look like them or like act like them, but for me, what I'm seeing in our family, I feel like our youngest, he kind of mimics you in a way. Like for example, the games he plays and like what he does. I feel like seeing it now, like I feel like he's trying to get your approval, like personally what I can see. And does he like text you sometimes like, oh look, I'm playing this game, this and that?
Yes, I agree. My youngest brother does try to be a lot like me, as was in he tries to, he's constantly seeking my approval by pretty much playing the same games as I do, trying to become like me essentially, as in just to, for my approval, which it's kind of adoring, but also I kind of want him to be his own self. But that's probably because he's still young, as he's still in middle school, right?
Yeah, he's in
eighth grade. So maybe when he grows older, he finds himself and defines who he is as an individual.
But I feel like I think eighth grade is like I think he's old enough by then. Like I feel like the copying ages is most likely like what like elementary school to maybe sixth, seventh grade. I feel like eighth grade you're about to enter high school. I feel like you should be your like own person by now. Like me, like I sometimes tell him like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And he's just like, no, I just want to like do what, just play games. Basically what you do. Like for me, like I've played in like football teams, I've played games, like I've done all this. I feel like he should also like step out and like try like clubs or try something new instead of just like basically living your life kind of.
But you don't really know this. Maybe that is his path. Maybe he really is just kind of like a carbon copy of me. So we don't really, because he's still growing. He's still not out of, maybe in high school he changes because it's very random.
Do you think like sharing something affects like how the younger sibling copies someone?
I don't think it's copying more than the sharing concept that happens with the siblings, where they share most of their things together. I feel like this is the beginning of a rivalry where one person or one sibling wants something more than the other, or wants to use something more than the other. This sharing, that's why rivalry stems from. Like this sharing doesn't work.
So do you think copying as a concept, do you think it loses individuality, or do you think it doesn't help growth, or what do you think?
Well, I don't think it loses individuality, because then again, like, yeah, you're copying, but you're also learning from your older sibling, let's say, or you're learning from, because it's just like, you think copying meaning you straight up become the person. You don't really become the person that you're copying. You're kind of just becoming your own person while using the person you're copying as a platform to elevate yourself and finding who you are as a person, which is what I personally believe is my concept of copying / sharing.
Mm-hmm. It might have some certain individualism because it's not really copying you, but I feel like, personally for me, I feel like it's not really you becoming your own person. So moving back to like the rivalry issue. So since you're the eldest child, do you feel like the relationship between your parents was like threatened by like this new baby and then like the youngest too?
No, I don't really believe so. I believe, well, this is for the next podcast. I'm going to talk about leadership, and being the eldest, you kind of are like the role model. So you expect, your siblings to copy you and to grow up looking up to you, which, well, as a kid, personally, I did not like that. I kind of wanted to be my own self, and I didn't want people copying me. But as I grew older, I kind of just, took it in, as in, you're the eldest, people, they just look up to you. You have to pave the way forward for your siblings. But I also understand do you feel, like threatened by, our youngest sibling, your parents, as a middle child?
Not really, because like the middle children, which we also talk about in our blog, I'm sure. As the middle child, I feel like you don't really have a place, so you're just there. You don't really care that much. Personally, like I didn't really care about like the youngest. I just saw like them getting spoiled, so I felt like okay, we just have to like
But
deal with it.
this rivalry that stems from between us, for example, where we support different things and we grew up, pretty much against each other on every, separate occasion. Did you feel that was because of, our parents? Did they like me more than you, for example, and you were jealous of that, or?
No, I didn't see anything like that. I felt like we were like both equally like loved and like we both got attention. That's how I saw it. I mean, maybe because I was like young and I didn't really get it that much, but I feel like we both shared the things we shared. We both got on well. I feel like we fought, yes, but I felt like fighting is like a must in rivalries. Like we obviously fought a lot. We fought in the craziest places, but I mean, I think it's a normal thing about rivalries, especially as brothers too. Like like a brother, you feel like at one time in your life or multiple times actually, you have to fight. You have to fight it out. And yeah, I mean, do you think other siblings have you ever witnessed or like you heard like other brothers like not fighting? Is that something do you think is like weird or
No, not about others brothers fighting. Because I agree with the brothers fight it out, but also that stems from, this rivalry. Rivalry creates this fighting, as in, I remember when I was a kid, you would used to copy me a lot, and I hated that. Like, I hated people copying me as a child, which what stemmed this rivalry, wherein I didn't want you picking the same side as me or picking the same team as me. Because I always thought of you as in, the younger brother, as in, like, the weaker brother, for example. As in, I always thought I would be better than you, so if you joined my team, we would, be worse, for example. That's where like this rivalry for me stemmed from as a child. But as I grew older, I realized how, selfish and childish that was, for example. But yeah,
no, actually like when you say that like oh he's copying me like oh don't copy and all that. For me like it's and I think most people they don't want to copy you necessarily. They literally just like the thing like it's not like oh my god I like this you can't like it like they actually like the thing and you happen to like it too so I feel like most rivalries like they start kind of like that but when you grow up you feel like I don't know if you noticed either but the other person just really like likes the same thing you do.
and I understand what you meant by, liking something because you like it. And this was back then we were kids, as in siblings, they don't really, understand that concept until later on in life, where they look back and they realized how, stupid that was. But I agree, as in, it could be, helpful in a way where if you have, the siblings, prevent the other sibling from copying each other, as in, I believe it helps grow the individuality of the other sibling. As in, for example, I didn't want you copying me, as in I want you to become your own person and find the things you like to do, which I feel like I helped you grow as a person. Don't you agree?
Yeah, but like growing up now, yeah, I could see it. But when you were growing up and like you were doing this, were you thinking of that like necessarily, or was it just like get off, like whatever?
No, back then I believed it was called gatekeeping. I was gatekeeping you from anything that was pretty nice. I remember.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, that's why I made you support.
Yeah, but look,
not the best.
no. For example, the teams we support at that time there was a rivalry. So, for example, you supported Manchester United, I supported Chelsea. At that time, those two were like the biggest and like
football clubs.
Yeah, the football teams, Barcelona, Madrid, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like those also like those obviously fuel the rivalry, but I feel like rivalries between siblings, I think that's like a must you have. It's like a thing you look back on and enjoy. That's what I think. Like it's it's a necessity that happens between siblings.
But do you believe it is a necessity? Because I believe, siblings. I don't know if I've ever seen it, but I don't know if anyone else out there listening to this podcast has can relate. But have you guys had you know, siblings where you just straight up got along with, like no rivalries, you all like the same thing? Maybe twins? You think twins have that?
Twins,
Where they
I've had friends who are twins, and they also had rivalries. They both supported the opposite teams. They always wanted to be their own selves, and you could see it. And I've had also like friends that they have like a older brother, literally just like me and you. They're the same, like difference in age, but they like really got along with each other, and I always found that weird because I feel like
in terms of rivalry, I believe. Have you ever met people where, you know, like this rivalry between each other has grown into like serious hatred with one another? Do you know anyone that, as siblings genuinely hate each other?
no, I feel like as a brother, like obviously you would hate him, but like obvious, but like in deep within you actually like he's your brother. Like you have to like you have like the love for him. Like, but I don't think it's ever. I haven't seen personally brothers that have just cut ties and haven't really talked to each other. Like, have you ever seen anything
Yes,
like this?
I think I've seen sisters cut ties with each other. I know this one girl who cut ties with her sister and just completely like just doesn't talk with her, doesn't communicate with her. But you also see it in movies and how that's portrayed. But
But how did that happen? How did she cut ties? Like, how did she just stop talking to her like out of nowhere, or was there like a specific reason where like the other sister did something that's like unforgivable or something like that?
not really unforgivable. They It was just a long, resentful hatred that just was brewing from the start, and then it just, as they grew older, they just didn't like each other. Like they slowly like fell apart.
So moving on to the cutting ties, how do you think siblings in general, like who used to have rivalries and all that, how do you think they would get better? Like how would they get along better, do you think?
I believe as you grow older, you just realize how, the rivalries aren't that serious. It's just a form of growing up with your sibling. This rivalry is just growing up with your sibling, and then once you grow older to the age that we are now, like pretty much in your 20s, in your teens, in your adult life, you kind of look back at it and see as how, that's just a form of growing up and bonding. It's just a form of bonding, this rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, I also see it that way. I feel like, but when do you think like this age or like this happened where you're like, okay, this is like stupid. Like we should just get along and just like, okay, we can talk about this and that. Like when do you think that moment where you're like, okay, I don't see him as like, oh, like a rival. Like I don't see him as like a person I'll just make fun of just every time I see him and stuff like that.
I feel like it just depends on the person. Growing up, it could just. Well, I feel personally for me, it's when I moved away from you guys, when you guys started living in a different country, and I went to university here, and I was living alone. I realized this. What's the point of this rivalry between my brother? As in, like, he's not with me around me anymore. It's like you can't just make fun of him online, like on phone.
Yeah.
It's not even like worth it anymore. But personally, I believe it's it depends on your family relationship and your relationship with your brother. Are you, if you don't live with him, I don't see this rivalry happening, as often as it is, or it's as serious as it is.
Yeah. Do you think you fighting, and obviously you'd always win because you're older and all that, but do you think that gave you a sense of like I'm the better one, like you should fear me and all that?
Yes, of course. As a child, I used to genuinely hate you. I'm not gonna lie. As a child,
Yeah, I mean,
I
I could
used to
tell,
have
man.
some resentment, just this
Yeah.
deep hatred for you. I do not even know why. To this day, I don't really know why anymore.
I
I don't
got
really
beat. I
remember it.
got beat a lot of times. Well, I think
just
the one I could really remember is getting beat because I was using the internet. I kid you not. There was one time where we we had to go to a family gathering, but I didn't want to, and he wasn't, and he just because I was copying him, he beat me with a chair. I kid you not, guys, a chair. And at that moment, I realized there's something wrong. There must be something wrong here. Like this is not normal. But I feel like me, I did this with
I have
my.
no memory of it.
Yeah, of course you don't. Um, Me personally, like I did this to my younger brother because like my parents wouldn't do anything to them. So with me, did you think like yo, my parents are not doing anything to this guy? Like if I did something bad or something, like my parents aren't doing anything, so I should step up. Is that what you think with me?
No, as I said before, I used to just genuinely hate you back then.
Mm-hmm.
Back then as a kid, I don't know why. I feel like you used to copy me a lot, and I didn't like that. Like I wanted to be my own self, and you were like constantly on my back, I believed. But then like, it was back then. I learned from now as I grew older. That was childish, that was.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I didn't see, as in like I didn't see it as in, my parents didn't do anything, so I should step up and do something. I don't believe that for me.
See, for me personally, because my younger brother, everybody knows, like the youngest, they get spoiled the most. Like this is just a general thing with everyone, and so I had to kind of step up because what they would do was like they knew my younger brother kind of feared me, so they would just like call my name, and I would like step out and see what's up. So I felt like for me personally, like I had to step up for like my parents so they could actually like do something to this kid because he's getting spoiled too much.
Okay, closing it out here. Let's end on a positive note. How do you think, you can get, your siblings to get along better during these rivalry moments, during these heated moments between each other?
I think playing or like doing something that you both enjoy, even though like there's a rivalry, you still enjoy it. So like looking back, like all our like not fights, but like our wrestling, like when you used to wrestle and all that, I feel like looking back at it, even at that time, it wasn't something serious. I knew as like even growing up, like I knew it wasn't serious. So I feel like doing something that you both enjoy and that doesn't really harm you two is always something better.
I mean, I agree, as in just doing activities together, even if they are competitive, like I remember we used to play football against each other. I
Mhm.
feel like that's a good bonding activity that isn't as serious. Or we'd play Call of Duty together,
Mm-hmm.
like competing against each other, but like not competing against each other, but then competing as against each other in like the same team, trying to outscore each other.
Yeah,
I feel like that's, good rivalry rather than bad rivalry where
Yeah.
it gets heated.
yeah.
And then, jealousy stems from it
Mm-hmm.
or hatred stems from it, which I believe is a choice I agree on. But yeah, that's
Well,
it.
and that's all the time we have left today.
Tune in next time for the Bro to Bro podcast.